This week on Trad Archery 101, we're going to talk about, depending on your point of view, the greatest things in sliced bread or the epitome of evil. String walking. Hey everybody, welcome to Trad Archery 101, Greg here. Alright, string walking. What is it? Well, simply put, string walking is just a method of aiming, right? And if you think about it, it's the opposite of gap. And we'll cover that in a second. But the benefit of string walking is it's probably the most consistent method of aiming. And that's because your arrow, if you so desire, will always be point on. It doesn't adjust up or down. It's in the same spot regardless of distance. Now the disadvantage is it can put extra stress on bows, especially older bows, one-piece bows. They're not really designed to have it if you have a deep crawl, but that's not the case in all of them, because like anything else, there are no absolutes. All right, everybody, before we get going, let's talk about some terminology so I don't throw you off right off the bat. When I talk about the word crawl is how far down from the arrow or the nock that you are. That's what they call your crawl. Now, how you measure the crawl can be done many ways, and it depends on what you're using. If you're using a tab like me, a metal tab, this is a Yoast tab, you'll see all these tick marks on it, right? See those? Well, you can do it many ways. You can count the big ones as singular digits, so that'd be 1, 1.5, 2, or you can do that as 2, 4, 6. It's however you want it. But what if you don't have a metal tab? Well, if you have a cloth one, a lot of people use the threads. What if you don't have that? All different ways you can do it. If you're using a glove, you can use a part of your glove. Many ways to do it, but just remember when they talk about the crawl, talking about how far down the string that they're going. Next term you're going to hear is called the lollipop. And the lollipop refers to your sight picture. Two ways, well, it's actually more than that, but you know what I mean. Many ways you can aim. One, you can put the arrow so it covers where you want to hit. Some people prefer that. But when they talk about a lollipop, we're talking about putting the arrow at the base of the circle. Hence the term lollipop, because that's what it resembles, your lollipop and the stem. So when people ask you, do you lollipop, they're asking about how you actually have your sight picture. Is the arrow on it? There, wherever. So there is the term lollipop. Another term you're going to hear a lot of is tiller. Now, tiller doesn't play a part into it, but tiller is simple. Tiller is the distance between, if you have a one-piece bow that fades, or a takedown right here, from this part of the bow to the string. They can be even, one can be more, one can be less. When you shoot 3 under, people like to have a negative tiller. Some people don't. It's all personal preference. When you shoot string walking, because your hand's farther down, you're going to probably need a different tiller. Now this becomes an issue for one-piece bows, which cannot adjust tiller. But on a 3-piece bow, not so much. We're going to cover that up real quick next. All right, everybody, talk about tiller and tiller adjustments. You cannot adjust a tiller on a one-piece bow. You can, but you're going to have to shave off material off it, and it'll never be able to go back. So I wouldn't recommend it. But this beast here, this is what they call a bear bow. And this bear bow, this baby was made for string walking. Now, why do I say that? Because of all the infinite amount of adjustments you can fine-tune this thing unlike anything I've ever seen. I've only been shooting a bear bow for about 2 months. I didn't buy this. This is a gift from Ron Olivia. Thank you, Ron. Since he gave it to me, you know what? I thought I'd learn about it. So, how do you adjust tiller on a bear bow? Simple. This bolt right here and this one. Back this one out if you're going to go in, and you crank this. All this does, it'll change the limb angle. If you do both, you can actually increase the poundage of your bow. So that's how easy it is. You're out on the course, you know something's wrong, you can go and make an adjustment out on the course. You can't do that with any other bow. But can you do it with a wooden bow? Why, yes you can. Not as easy, but it can be done. So, how do you do a tiller adjustment on one of these? Well, you got to de-string it. You got to have a shim. You put the shim under there and I'll change your limb angle, bolt it back on and string it up. So it can be done. Now, can you do it out on the course? Nope. That's why the bear bow was made for string walking. You can do it with this, and this is what I use for 3D, right? And I think this is a great bow, handles it well. It is not tillered for string walking, but my crawl's not that big, so it doesn't really matter, right? So up next, we're gonna go over how to string walk. All right, everybody, how do you string walk? It is very simple. Remember before I said it's the opposite of gap. So when you gap shoot, you knock your arrow, draw back, and you know at this distance, you gotta be so many inches below the target, right? In string walking, I'm always on target, but the distance, instead of being on the arrow point, is on the knock end. What am I talking about? Greg, you making no sense there. Yeah, I know, I babble. So, I'm here. I know this is 10 yards. My crawl, for me, is an 8. So remember what I said earlier about doing it? I do 2, 4, 6, 8. So that looks about an inch. Right there. There's my crawl. So what I do, I put my tab up here, 2, 4, 6, 8. Put my thumb there, slide the tab down, and then I set my hook. And then all I do is everything like we normally do. Set my shoulders, set my wrist, rotate my scapula, same anchor, draw, arrows on target, and simply execute the shot. That's it. It's that simple. But now, let's show you how it's not that simple, and let's break it down. So what we just did, we shot the target 10 yards away, right? The first thing you got to do, like anything else, is determine the distance. Now, you can do it with your eyes, looking at it, right? Using the ground, familiarity, all different ways, or you can use one of these. Now, I know what people are saying. It's not allowed in competition. That's great. Doesn't mean you can't use it for training. And then you're gonna know this, you'll get that familiarization I was talking about. You shoot the target, oh, that's 10 yards. Your mind will remember it after a while. Now, it's not the most accurate, but you can back it up with looking at the ground too. So that's your first step, is to find your distance. It's key, because that is the importance of string walking. The better you know your distance, the more exact you'll be, the better you'll shoot. All right, everybody, know the distance. Now, how do you set your crawl? Many ways, and it's totally personal preference. It all depends on how you think and what you're comfortable with. Setting your crawl is very simple. What you do is you use something to find a distance. Now, most people will use their tab, right? Just like that. Now, you see in the tab, I got a small mark and a large mark, right? How you count's up to you. Each tick can be a 1, or the large one can be a 1, 2, 3. So they can go 3.1, 3.2, or 2, whatever. It's how you like it. If you're using a leather tab, you can use the stitching. If you use your glove, you can use marks on your glove. I even know a couple people that use each string, and that's so hard for me because I can't see it, but they claim they can feel it. So what you use to measure it's totally up to you, but you got to have something to measure it. So how you set it is real simple. In your setup phase, right, I take my tab, slide it up to my knock. Whatever my crawl is, I use 6 for me. I use the larger ones as 2. Slide my finger down, set my hook, and I'm good to go. Now, if you're shooting 3D and you got all different distances, you're going to have your crawl move up and down. But what if you're shooting indoor? Then you can use a fixed crawl. You know 20 yards, it's always going to be that, so that. But instead of doing this every single time, neat little trick I was taught by Paul Helms was, you know it's right here, you tie another knock down there. So you can instantly put your finger there. I know it's not allowed in competition, but it is allowed in hunting. So you're up in your stand, wherever you're hunting, and you know there's this one spot this deer comes to. You know the distance. You're going to nail them there. Set your string walk up there, put that knock on there. You don't have to look. You just put your hand on there, slide it up, touched it, I'm good to go. I've used it on my other bow and I loved it. That fixed crawl was awesome. It brought everything up, made my gaps smaller, and the crawl was only this much, and it did not put that much stress on my bow. So that's another option you can do. You can do a fluid crawl, or you can do a static crawl. Next step's the draw. We all know that, right? You just draw the bow. Now I'm gonna say, more solid you are, the better you shoot. Simple. And then finally, you're gonna aim. Now aiming's simple, because why? Remember, it's always point on. Your arrow is always pointing at the target. Now remember the lollipop? You can do that. So if you're one of those people who like to see where you hit, like an instinctive shooter, so you set it up so your arrow's just below it. Your mind's gonna learn it, and believe it or not, yes, string walking can be instinctive. Why? Because you just naturally set it up. You know that arrow's on the bottom of it, you take your shot, right? I know people hate that line, no, it can't be instinctive. It is. It's not really instinctive, but it's the same concept. I don't focus on the arrow, I focus on the target, and I shoot. What it is, I do all my work beforehand to execute the shot. In gap, I do my work after I'm all set up, then I do my aiming. String walking, I do all that stuff beforehand, so all I gotta do is focus on shooting. All right, so there you have it. That is string walking. Now, I'll show you how to find your crawl. Everybody, finding your crawl, real simple. First thing you gotta do is have a target and known distance. It must be exact. You can't be on and off, because 3 yards can make a huge difference in where you hit. And that's a big thing for success or failure. So we're gonna go down to the target, and we're gonna talk about something else that is very important to setting your crawl. All right, everybody, and down here at the target. So besides the exact knowing distance, it's how accurate do you wanna be? There are those, that dot is what they want to hit, and that's pretty dang accurate. Then there are those, oh, this is okay, this is acceptable, this is acceptable, right? What is it for you? So someone, when they talk to you, you know, they act like everybody has the exact same standard, and we don't. Now I will say this, if you do 3D, this is good, because this is the 10 ring. Hunting, that's pretty darn good, because that's going to get you in the kill. Target, that's not as good. Target, it's this, maybe this. It's probably just that, right? But that's how it is. So you understand, when you talk to people, everybody has different standards, and how accurate you want to be, well, that's up to you. One more thing you're going to figure out is how you like to aim. Are you going to be point on or lollipop, right? That's important. So I'm going to put my arrow in the middle of the yellow. I'm going to do no crawl. I'm going to use an arrow that's damaged. We won't do that. Missing feathers. All right. No crawl. Take a shot and let's see what happens. There we go. High and light. That was a bad shot by me. Always shoot more than one. It didn't hold for a second at all. Now, let's get this set up. Yeah, definitely high. Slightly right, but that's okay. We'll get there. All right, and that's what happened with what I want. 2 arrows side by side. So the first one I screwed up on. Next 2 were perfect. They're side by side. So let's go down and take a look at it and figure out what's going on. All right, everybody. First one, I just screwed it up. We won't count that. These 2 are good. They're within a finger of each other. So I'm to the left, and I'm a good distance high where I want to be. 6 inches. So that's what we're going to play on. We know how much. This is aiming. Now if I had a bare bow, I could just a plunger. My trad bow I really can't, but there you can. I got to push my arrows to the right for me being left-handed. Take a toothpick and put it in behind your strike plate if you have one, and that can help do it. Simple little trick. All right, so now we're going to go back. So I got a 6. That's a good height, so I don't think a 2 will do it. You're going to learn how much your bow reacts to the changes. I'm going to try it with a 4 and let's see what happens. Walking back, look down, I seen this. This is one of mine. This is what I normally use. I stick this in a bag and I shoot at it. As long as I'm close to it, that's where I want to be. So there's another trick you can do. Buying it at Home Depot for next to nothing. All right. So now we know shooting high. So remember, I'm going to put my tab up there. For me, the long ones are 2, 4, right there. And we're going to give it a try and let's see what happens. So nothing changes in your shot cycle. It all remains the same. Slide it up. 2, 4, slide it down, set my hook, set my grip, set my shoulders, roll my scapula, down. Good shot, actually. Nice and in line. Try it again. Always do 1 or 2 to confirm what the world's going on here. All right, let's go. Set my shoulders, my wrist, roll my scapula. All right, I don't need to do any more because I'm pretty much on. Still high, so let's go down and look at it. We'll make my adjustment. All right, everybody, second round. First 2, these 2. So I dropped a good few inches. Got to do about the same to get where I want. So I'm going to drop 2 more. Now, I'm going to tell you this right now. The bigger the target you aim at, the more variance you're going to have and the more you can be off. The smaller your target gets, the more precise you can put your arrow on a spot, the better you'll shoot. Just like instinctive aiming. If you aim at an area, you're going to hit an area. You aim at a spot, you're going to hit a spot. Still applies to string walking. All right, so we're on our 3rd round. We dropped him down once. Try to drop him down a second time. Knock. Crawl is 6. 2, 4, 6. Slide the finger down. Hook, grip, shoulders, wrist. Rotate scapula. And there we are. I want in the gold ring. Why am I doing just the gold ring and not tighter? 3D. I use this bow for 3D. So remember, if I'm hunting, I put that knock right there, and all I do is just put my hand on it, slide it up, touch the knock, and know I'm good to go. Oh, plucked it. 2 out of 3. All right, let's go down. Let's take a look. All right, everybody. First one, second one, third one. No, even with the third one being a bad pluck, it was perfectly in height. And like I said, I don't put it here. I'm down in this area, so I'm going to get a little bit of variance, which I'm okay with because I'm shooting for a bigger target. I just want 10 shots in 3D. I'm not to that point where I can put them all in this little one right here. But that'll be, you know, one day down the road. So there you have it. That's what you got to do. You fire your first group, make an adjustment. When you get them in, you verify it. And now we're set. I know at 20 yards, my crawl is a 6. And you just repeat that process for all ranges. Now most people, when you start, would do 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, etc. I know some people that do 10, 12, 13, 14, 15, things like that. It's totally up to you. How detailed you want to get and how crazy you get with it, well, that's totally up to you. All right, everybody, there you have it. That's how you do your crawl. Now there are some questions that people have asked that are written down, and I'm going to go over them. Can you use a crawl with any bow? Yes and no. There's a lot of caveats to it. It all depends. I've used them on 40, 50-year-old one-piece bows, all the way up to modern bows and bare bows. So yes, it can. No, it can't. No, because if you have a big crawl, it's going to put a lot of stress on those old one-piece bows, and it will damage them. So if you have an older one-piece bow, you got a good decent crawl that you know is affecting the tiller and the stress in that bow, no. All right, so use good personal judgment. No one can tell you but you. Next one is, do you have to do anything to your bow to use it? No, really, you don't. I don't do anything to my bows and I use it. Now, I will say this, something I didn't tell you before. My crawls were based on how I set my bow up. My bow is set up for 3D archery. In the IBO, max distance for my group is 30 yards. ASA, it's 25. So I set my point on 30 yards. So where there's no crawl, my fingers are touching the nock, I try to make the farthest shots the easiest, right? So everything I did worked from that. Now how I got to that was a mixture of string, nock point, arrow, all different types of stuff from weight, spine, etc., to the bow, whole bunch of stuff. You put them all together, you mix them up, and then you'll work it out. So everything I showed you today was based off of my 35-pound bow set up for 3D archery, point on at 30 yards. I already knew what my point on was ahead of time, and that's a big one. It really, once you get your setup set, you can replicate it as much as you want. Do you have to do anything to your arrows? No, not at all. Now, I prefer maximum length arrows. The ones I'm using here, greatest name ever, the Cross X Hurricane Octagon. 32 inches of pure awesomeness. Why do I use 32? Makes my gap smaller. A longer arrow, not only make your gap smaller, can make your crawl smaller. You know, the whole thing about spine, another video. But yes, you have to do nothing special to your arrows. Did I have to change anything in my shot cycle? Nope, not at all. I use the same anchor, everything's the same. Now I will say, it's going to feel funky the first few times because your fingers here, maybe you're used to the nock touching, but also the nock's up here or somewhere else. So understand that. Like anything else, it's going to feel weird at first, but the more you do it, the better you'll get at it. All right, so there you have it. Basic question. String walking, just another tool in our kit bag. All right, everybody. Some things you need to know. One, your crawls don't have to be big. Set your bow up so you can have small crawls. The smaller the crawl, the better. All right, even with a bare bow. Big crawls, man, that takes some skill to get those babies tuned. And one thing about string walking, it's almost always louder noise. Most time, your crawl's under an inch. Most of mine are under an inch, so it's not putting that much stress on mine. And then finally, string walking, what will it do? It's going to take your 3D archery to a higher level. You're going to walk out there and start banging those 10s. Doesn't matter what the distance is. And I love string walking for those super close shots. We have them out on my course under 10. I go there and I know, man, I'm there, point on. When you're shooting instinctive or gap at a target 8 yards away, your arrow's in the dirt. There's no way. Not me, my arrow's on target. I focus on the target, and that is what I love about string walking, right? I know people think it's wrong, it's not this. Hey, it makes me a much better shot. I'm gonna do it. All right, everybody, I have a website, 3darchery.net, and on that website, you can find a list of archery ranges, clubs, festivals, competitions, and so much more. All right, everybody, appreciate you watching. Don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you next time with an all-new episode. Trad Archery 101.